Today we're going to be reinstalling the rear caliper, this is just the line covered with the bag. Oh, what is that? Uh-oh, I got parts falling off of this now. That must have came out. I have to clean that up too. I didn't know I had another spring in there. All right, so rear caliper. This is the brake line going back here into the master cylinder, and then our reservoir's up here, which looks like really dirty. I don't think I've ever taken this side cover off. I didn't even know I had a key, and must be a secret compartment under there. So here we go. Brake reservoir. Cap. There's some moisture in there. Brake reservoir, which is fully out. Yeah, it's not too bad. Hold on, do we have some dirt in there? Yeah, it looks kind of dirty, so we'll have to put new fluid in there and we can pump it through. Basically what you're doing is just pumping this up, and yeah, we'll clean this up, put some new fluid in. Hopefully we can push all the old fluid out of this line before we install the new caliper. So that's what we're going to plan to do here. Don't think I've ever serviced the rear brakes. As I said, there's a lot of moisture in here. That's not supposed to be in there. Don't need moisture in there. But this is going to have brake fluid on the bottom. And there we go. Yeah, so let's clean this out, and then we can put new fluid in here and watch that level and pump it out until it's clean. All clean throughout the system. And then we can put our new caliper on, put new fluid into the caliper, and we'll be done. I went ahead and pulled the seat off, which I don't think I have ever done in the history of owning this bike. So it's good to see what's under here. Looks good to me. There's our regulator rectifier right there. Looks like, I don't know. The wires are taped there, but there's our connection. I don't know, it looks, there's our connection. Looks a little dark to me. Have to keep an eye on that, make sure that keeps charging. Maybe it's just dirty. And anyway, so that's for another day. There's our fuel filter. Gotta make sure that stays good. Got fuel lines going left and right. Here is a shutoff for the line, but there's also a shutoff on the tank. So I guess if you want to fix something from here to there, you shut that off, and if you want to fix something from here to, I don't know where it goes from there. Anyway, and then we have CB1100 shock upgrade right there. So that's your rear shock way up in there, interestingly enough. But here's what we're in here for. I just took the seat off in order to get a better look at this, and I'm just gonna lift that off, and this actually needs to compress back into itself. And like I said before, we had some moisture in there. We're gonna set this up here, let it do its thing there, and we're going to suck this out with the dirt. Then put new fluid in so we can go ahead and run the new fluid down through. So basically, just want to suck it out with our syringe. Don't get it on your paint or any other surfaces that you care about. Probably shouldn't have my side cover laying down there. Shoot it into there. And then once we get all this stuff out, there's already air in the system since we disconnect the caliper. So I'm not too worried about that. I'll get all this out and wipe out the dirt that's in the bottom here. And then we'll fill it back up with clean fluid and start the bleeding process. Oh, look. I'm dripping brake fluid down here since I'm messing with it. I'm gonna stop that from happening. Okay, so got all that dirt out of there. I got all the old fluid, which wasn't that dirty, out of there. And we look at the lid or the cap, and it calls for .4. I did compress the diaphragm here. Make sure you have your little washer, or whatever you call it there. Looks like I have a piece of dirt to get. And wiped all the moisture out of the top, out of the lid and everything. Compressed that in, so that's ready to go. And we have our .4 to put in here. Now we're just gonna top this up and basically just push the brake lever and push all the old fluid out. I don't know that I'm gonna really be able to tell what's clean or dirty because it was pretty clean, but we'll push a little bit of this through and hopefully push everything out. When we push the brake pedal here, it's gonna push the diaphragm here, and that should push our fluid out the line. There's our nice clean fluid. And let's see what happens if we just pump the brakes. Pump the brakes! Probably get some air bubbles coming up through here. It's running out the bottom. So it looks like our brakes do work. We'll just push a good bit through. I am catching this, so I'm not making a mess. But we'll pump these brakes up. There is some air in the line, I know that much. Now there's definitely air in the line. So it worked once, but now it's not working. We're gonna have to hook up the caliper here because we got air stuck through here. You can hear it working. There we go. Now we're getting that air worked through. Alright, so if you're gonna do what I did without the caliper on, basically what you're gonna have to do, when you pump the brake, it'll push fluid out. But rather than suck air back through, you gotta block off your holes so you don't suck air in. So all it's gonna do is push air back out. It's just gonna be keep doing this. So every time I'd let the pedal off, I would hold this down so I didn't suck a bunch of air in there and have to push that out. So if you don't suck a bunch of air in, it'll push out more fluid. So that's what I did. It's not the best way to do it, and I kind of made a mess. I do need to clean up this spring here and make sure, I think it sits right here on the edge. So right in here, it really fits there perfectly. So I assume that is where it sits. So I'm gonna go clean up this spring or guide, whatever you wanna call it in your world, but it's definitely dirty. We'll clean this up quick. And then we'll bring the caliper out, and I didn't get any bad fluid out. It looked all clean. So I'm actually pretty happy with the fluid in this thing. And it seems to be working, building pressure. And I pushed all this down through and haven't seen any dirty fluid. So I think we're good. Gonna go ahead and clean up my mess. Brake fluid on the tire and wheel. And hook everybody back up. All right, guys, here's our right rear brake retainer, bracket retainer. It's just basically a little piece of metal that fits between the metal, little piece of aluminum that fits in there. So if it's not there, I'm not sure it's the end of the world, but we have it. It's clean, it's in place. Now we'll slide our caliper on there and reconnect it. Okay, well, here are the mounting bolts, and these definitely do need cleaned up. And I'll show you something here. I wasn't sure exactly where this other boot went, and I went to mount the caliper and realized this other boot's important and it's missing. So that could be another reason this wasn't functioning quite right. So I pulled the upper boot out. It's a 14, and noticed that it was kind of cruddy. So cleaning that up. Also, the one that fits in that sleeve, This one actually was a little dirty, so we need to clean that up, but it's not too bad. But I was thinking this was just hardcore mounted, but no. This mounts to the bike, and then the caliper can move on that. And then this mounts to the caliper, and then it slides in there. So basically, both of these need to be functioning. And then this boot fits around where this bolt goes in. I'll show you that in a minute once I get these cleaned up. All right, so I'll show you where these guys go. Bigger bolt slides in this hole. When the caliper lines up with that, that's where it goes, right around the corner from this little bracket. And yeah, that goes in there, and it screws into your caliper, and then it just slides ever so gently in there. And as you can see, there's a lip here, and that is where our other little boot goes. So that keeps your grease in there and your weather out. And you need that there, which it wasn't there, and that probably did not help this thing slide. And then of course, this one is the smaller one. It is a 12, and that goes in down here, and that goes through our sleeve right here, which we've already greased up, and we already have our boots on. So this thing is really meant to slide in both directions, left and right. Why isn't it sliding for me right now? Well, it slid for me earlier. I don't know, maybe I don't have the right there. All right, it can still slide. I was getting worried there. No, it wasn't even, it was in the shop. There we go. Now she's sliding just fine. Okay, good. She's still sliding. I was getting a little nervous. So yeah, put a little bit of grease on here, and that slides in there, and that fastens to the bike mount. And then, as I said, here's a threaded hole right there. This goes in here and threads into there, and then this slides. Once I put the boot in here, it slides there. So I'm gonna put some grease inside the hole, make sure it's coated in there. Actually, I should probably clean that hole out a little bit somehow, so that that's clean enough, so my new bolt has somewhere nice to slide with. Side note, I wanted to check what's in my little box here, and it's empty. But if you ever need a key code, you might be able to get it off of here, because it's printed on the back of this lock. And if your keys are all the same, that's going to match your ignition, just so you know. All right, back to work. Oh, I noticed I'm missing a grommet here for the side cover. That would be nice to have, so that all three function correctly. All right, you can see in there, I cleaned that up. I had a little brush handy. There you go. That fit in there perfectly. Just went in and rubbed it around. Used some carb cleaner, brake parts cleaner. Got that all cleaned up. So now we're gonna squeeze some grease in there, and we're gonna put the boot on and stick this guy on. All right, so we're checking into this thing. Hand tight, hand tight. Got the boot in the middle there, so everything's sealed up. Our little spring or bracket or whatever's there, so this thing can slide easier, I'm assuming. I'm sure it'll do it on its own. Yeah, so that's why that's there, just to keep... I forgot to put grease on that. Oh, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine, guys. I forgot to put grease on that. All right, pulling it back off, put grease on it. All right, time to install the banjo bolt, 2 crush washers. Do you reuse your crush washers? Do you reuse your crush washers? I tend to. Ooh, that's tight there with the... Well, it'll all be fine. Guess that's where it goes. Yeah, so 1 crush washer under the banjo, well, under here, and 1 over here, and the banjo bolt goes down in between. So I gotta pull that off. Well, everything is set up. Time for the good old brake bleed on the rear brake instead of the front. I don't think I've shown you a rear yet. I'm not even sure if I've ever done a rear. A lot of times they are not discs brakes on my bikes. Usually they're drums, so we don't have to do this. But what we're gonna do, we have new fluid in here. All we gotta do is pump it up a couple times, build up the pressure. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna hold that, crack that, fluid's gonna come out. We're gonna shut it and do the same thing again. I can't do that with my camera in my hand, so that's what I'm doing. Now it took a couple sessions, pumped it up about 4 times, cracked it, nothing. Pumped it up again, about 4 times, nothing. Pumped it up again, about 4 times, cracked it, nothing. And then we got some brake fluid with a lot of air came out. So that shows we're starting to fill up, build pressure. Now, oh yeah, now we're actually getting some pressure here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna hold that. I'm gonna crack this, see what comes out. Got a bunch of air bubbles. See, they're working their way up. Now we're gonna pump it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that down. Crack this, see what comes out. Just a little bit of air that time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna hold that, crack that. Oh man, we just got pressure. Now I can't even push it down the whole way. I can only push it down halfway. We definitely have just broke out the last air bubbles and everything is solid. That is awesome. So once this is all done, now I need to actually do a brake fluid change on the front. We should service those calipers too, but the rear was what we're having issues with. And now that we have brakes in the rear, wow, they are solid. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna crack this one more time. I'll probably do it 2 more times. Make sure our fluid's back up to full. I think we're at the lower line. Run it back up here to the upper line. Yeah, see, that's how much we worked through already. Yep, definitely at the lower line. We'll fill it back up to the upper line, and this will be all done. We will have rear brakes again. All right, join us on the next one. All I'm gonna have to do then is just watch this fluid when you take this off. Take this off, wipe up any excess fluid, put the cap down over it, and pull off the wrench. Don't leave that there. So I'll see you in the next one. We'll have rear brakes on the V65 Sabre.